This here is issue number 17 of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic by Boom Studios.
So, this issue kicks off a brand new story arc. Sometime after the Lord Drakkon saga, things have been pretty quiet for the Power Rangers. So, instead of fighting Rita's forces, they've been carrying out ordinary rescues, from car crashes to evacuating workers from a power plant in another country. Now, we get to see a new character introduced in the form of Grace Sterling, whose company Promethea claims to help those affected by Rita's forces. If you watched the original TV show, have you ever wondered how Angel Grove always managed to rebuild after giant Zord monster battles took out some of the buildings in the city? Well, this sort of issue is kind of addressed here by Grace Sterling. We then see Kimberly and Trini in what appears to be some kind of battle. They're on Tarmac 4 and aliens are firing on them, so the two Rangers need to make their escape. So this is Tarmac 4, which is a reference to Tarmac 3 in the TV show, where Nasty Knight fought one of Zordon's warriors. Jason is giving out orders back at the command center, whilst Alpha is piloting the pterodactyl Dinozord to rendezvous with Kimberly and Trini. This is the first time we see Alpha piloting a Zord from within a cockpit. Then there's Billy, Zach and Tommy in their Zords reporting back to Jason as they're dealing with a tornado on Earth. So Jason is having to coordinate both missions at once. Kimberly and Trini are being guided out of the city on Tarmac 4, whilst Tommy gets civilians to safety back on Earth. As Tommy teleports people to safety, Billy comes up with an idea to use the Mastodon Dinozord to freeze the air in the tornado's path. So all the Rangers have their hands full as Jason needs to watch over both teams, essentially taking up Zordon's role in his absence. The aliens catch up to Kimberly and Trini whilst Zack is struggling against the force of the tornado. But eventually the Mastodon's freezing power ends the tornado. Now, throughout this comic book series, we've seen the Zords do things they couldn't do in the TV series. This time, we see Alpha recovering Kimberly and Trini by deploying rope from the pterodactyl. This was not present in the TV show because, just like this toy, there weren't any compartments to house the rope. So, with the tornado gone and Alpha having retrieved Kimberly and Trini, everyone heads back to the command center, where Jason is relieved everything worked out. With everyone back at the command center, Trini takes out Zordon's staff, which they recovered from a black market collector called Zosma, who stole it from Zordon in the first place. The staff is broken, but it's a clear reference to Barza's staff from the original Duelinja series, which Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was adapted from. We see Zordon in his original form in the TV series through the adapted Japanese footage of Barza, the mentor of the Duelinja team. The staff is needed because the staff is coded with Zordon's genetic makeup, so the Rangers need it to tether him to the Rangers' world. We learn here that the Rangers rebuilt the command center themselves, and Rita really hasn't attacked since the Drakkon events. As the Rangers approach the evening, everyone heads on home or go to the gym. There's a very brief moment between Kimberly and Tommy, hinting at their romance just like the TV show. But we don't see any more than that as we move on to see Jason opting to remain in the command center, scanning the news in case the Rangers are needed. So the other Rangers teleport out, leaving Jason to scan Rita's palace and the news waves. It's now nighttime and Billy and Tommy are at the youth center working out. This pairing would have been out of place in the original TV show just after Tommy's arrival. But in the context of the comic storyline, it makes sense as we've seen Billy grow from his standalone story, but also with what he and Tommy went through in Drakkon's world. Then we move over to Kimberly's house, and what starts off as a relatively normal conversation between Kimberly and her mother quickly turns into something sour as her mother brings up a possible ex-boyfriend of Kimberly called Matthew. And on a side note here, we'll find out more about this Matthew character in Boom Studios' new series, Go Go Power Rangers. Anyway, Kimberly is taken aback and just walks out on her mother. We then see Trini at her house. We learn here that her recommended reading list contains some real and fictional books, for example, the real-life How Google Works, and the fictional Grace Sterling autobiography. She's also watching television, and it looks like she's watching something with a giant mecha with cheesy dialogue. She thinks it's terrible, asking rhetorically, who writes this garbage? Some irony there, as Power Rangers involves giant mecha and bad dialogue. Good thing then, Kimberly phones up asking if Trini wants to do something awesome. So, the two of them go for a ride, sat on the outside of the pterodactyl Dinozord. Whilst such a thing was not seen in the original TV show, it did remind me of the poster for the failed 2017 Power Rangers movie, with Naomi Scott playing Kimberly, sat on her Dinozord, and without her helmet on no less. So there's a bit of a lull in the Rangers' lives as they're not battling Rita. Things are fairly normal at the moment, which is boring for Trini. We then get a reference to the TV episode High Five, when Trini mentions she used to be afraid of heights, but now thinks they're thrilling. They talk about Jason keeping them occupied with the rescue and recovery operations, but they're worried about him because he's been super serious the last couple of months. And it's here we learn he may not have left the command center for some time. This might be the case, as we see Jason asleep at the command center, only for Zack to wake him up. Zack wants Jason to take a break from the command center, but then the news scan reports of an earthquake in Dubai, with reports of the Infinity Tower collapsing. Jason contacts the other Rangers, and we see the Megazord and Dragonzord already in Dubai. It looks like the two Zords have managed to catch the tower in time before its collapse. Now, here's a problem. I pointed out a discrepancy in the size of the Zords in a previous issue. The same applies here because the Megazord appears to have the entire Infinity Tower in its hands, albeit with some help from the Dragonzord. Super Sentai sources say the Daijujin, and therefore Megazord, stands at 41.7 meters. The Infinity Tower in real life is 306 meters tall. I think part of the building would have collapsed. Anyway, the Rangers celebrate, but Grace Sterling shines a light into the Megazord cockpit and tells the Rangers their downtime is about to end. She wants to talk to them, and we'll have to find out what she wants next time. So that was the beginning of the new arc. There weren't any battles, but it's nice to see a human story and epilogue following the events of the Drakkon arc. It's also great because not only does this wrap up some of the Drakkon arc, but it serves as a decent prologue for the new arc. There's a bit of mystery to the new character of Grace Sterling, which is an interesting addition as she was seen a few times in this issue. I can only assume Boom Studios has big plans for this character in future series, and I'd like to see how her character plays out.